I'm Sarah of Sarah Setzer Feltworks, and I was asked to show you how I make soap. It's an easy craft that you could do with kids, adults, and it's a good beginner class because it's really easy. It's really not hard to screw this, or it's hard to screw it up. It's really easy. Anyone can do it. I've had kids do it, adults do it. It's one of my more popular classes that I teach locally here in New Jersey. So I will show you. And this is one of the soaps, or two of the soaps that I've done already. And I don't like to make them super thick. I've seen them in stores before where people pile on the wool and they're really fluffy. It's nice, but sometimes the soap doesn't go all the way through, so it kind of defeats the purpose, and then people get frustrated because the soap doesn't actually work. It's just a big pile of fluff. So I like to keep them nice and tight. So yeah. So this is the soap that I use. I like to use round soap. This is soap that I make. Round soap is the easiest to felt because there's no corners. If you have like a weird shaped bar, this might be a little bit more challenging, and I'll talk about that when we go through it. You might have to do more rubbing with your hands than rubbing on a surface here. So the first step is, if your soap has any sort of edge to it, when I take these out of the mold, the edges have like a 90-degree point. And all I do is I just smooth out the edges using my trusty vegetable peeler, which is now my soap peeler. You just want a nice smooth edge. You don't have to go crazy with it, but you don't want any like super corners. So if you're using a square soap, you really want to take the time to round those edges off, and that'll help in the felting process and keep all the fibers covering the soap. If you have those edges, a lot of times they'll move the fibers and expose the soap. So you want some nice clean round edges so the wool will stay on it and it's all covered. There's no bare spots. So after I do that, basically all you need to do, it's really easy, is soap. You want one primary color to use as your base. I'm going to use this blue. You're going to ask me how much, and I'm going to tell you I don't know. As much as it takes. So I have a piece about, this 2 feet long, 3 feet long, maybe a yard. We'll see. And then I have down here, these are some accent colors. It's good for using up some of your supply here. So these are just some accent colors I'll use on top. And you want some hot water. Now, when I'm doing this, I use my trusty electric kettle, and I keep it on and have the water really, really, really hot, and I wear dish gloves to protect my hands because I'm felting about 20 of them at a time, and it'll really tear up your hands doing it that way, even though my soap is really gentle. Just that much hot water, that much soap takes a toll. So if you're working with kids or you're just doing it on your own and you don't have gloves, you don't need the extra hot water. Like, this is pretty hot, but I can take it. The cooler your water is, it's just going to take a little bit longer for those fibers to open up and intermingle and actually felt. But you can do it. It's not a big deal. So you need that, and then also you need some sort of rubbing surface. I use my trusty washboard here. If you don't have a washboard, not everybody does, you can go down to Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, and get yourself a roll of shelf liner. So this is just plastic shelf liner. It's got some ridges to it, and that makes a good surface when we're rubbing the soap. So then you just need a little square, but they come in big rolls, so you can line some shelves with it after you're done. So another thing that you're going to need is, you could use netting like tulle. I know a lot of videos tell you to use tulle, but what I like to use is old stockings. I just cut the foot off or whatever section, and you want a piece that's gonna go over your soap. So how we're gonna start is, this is probably the hardest part, but it's the easiest part, is drafting out the wool. This, in my classes, this seems to be the part that everybody thinks is the easiest, and then when they actually start to do it, they get really frustrated because it's a learning process. A lot of people have never felted before or have pulled roving apart in this way. I know a lot of you are spinners, so you're familiar with drafting, so it's probably easy for you guys. But if you haven't felted before or used wool before in this way, it's a little different. So what I like to do is put the roving right here, and you just want to grab the tips and pull up. You don't want to grab too much. You want to grab, can you see it? You want to grab just enough, and you're going to put it down on your soap. So I'm doing this outside, so hopefully it doesn't blow away. So I just draft it, lay it down. Oh, of course. Now you'll see there's two sides. There's like a blunt end where my fingers are, and then this wispy end. I like to put the blunt end on top of the soap. So I go all the way around, kind of making it even, maybe go twice. Of course the wind's gonna come right now. Hasn't been windy all day. You just want to get some good coverage. It doesn't have to be exact. Sorry, I'm just kind of pushing it down. And I like to put one on top. From there, you're going to pick it up. I fold it in my hand, and then I just fold these wispy ends over to the other side. So it's kind of, you're just wrapping it. So you can see it's just a little burrito of soap. And then I do the same thing. So I'll go around. You want to try and pull even layers and lay them evenly so that they get one even layer of wool all around your soap. If it's not a big deal. It's not going to affect anything. It's your first time. So as you do it more, it'll become easier. And then same thing, you're going to pick it up and just fold these wispy ends over. And then you got your base. And you want to feel around, like I might add a little bit more wool right here just because there's not two layers, it's kind of just one. And I don't want a bare spot. So I just go around and feel. And you can use multiple colors too if you want. Like if you wanted your base multiple colors, you could like blend them and hold two pieces of roving together and pull it out and blend it like that and lay it around. You can really do any color that you want, any color combination that you feel free. I like to do this kind of like abstract-y spider web kind of design with my colors. I just think it looks cool. So that's what I do. And how I do that is I grab a bunch of different coordinating colors, and I just pull off little wisps in each one. I like to make sure I always have like a dark and a really light so it has that contrast, or something really bright that goes with it. And then I kind of just move them around in my hands, kind of make these crazy spider webs and blend them a little bit. You don't want to blend them too much. And then I just kind of wrap it around. There's no right or wrong way to decorate it. And I wouldn't get too perfect with the design because it's going to smush around a little bit and shift as you felt it. So I do know there are some people that make felted soaps that actually needle felt designs afterwards, and I know you guys on the Teach It last Teach It Tuesdays was needle felting, so you could apply what you learned there and needle felt onto your soap design if you wanted to. So now that your soap is fully decorated, I got it how I want. Now it's time to felt it. Now you don't want to go sticking this right into the water without any covering, because it's going to be a big, huge mess. The fibers are going to stick to you, they're going to slide off, it's going to be no fun. Everyone's going to be upset, no good. So we're going to wrap it in our stocking. So I know, like I said before, you could use netting. I don't like to use netting, and I'll show you why as we're felting. I think using stocking is a lot easier, and it's more available. You can get them at the dollar store, and it allows you to felt them a lot nicer. There's a couple little tricks that I use with the stocking. So to put it in, I just kind of put the stocking around my hand, and then I place the soap in, and I wrap it up. And this is why you don't want to be too perfect with your design, because it might get a little smushed. So then I just kind of put it in there and make a little soap packet. So the first step we're going to do here is we're just going to get this wet. So we're going to dunk it in. It's going to take a little bit to absorb all the water and go all the way through and get that soap working. So you just dunk it in and kind of just work it a little bit. I like round soaps because it makes the process a lot easier. If you have a lot of curves and stuff, it can be a little bit more challenging, and you'll just have to use your hands more. But with the round soaps, what I do is I just kind of move it around like this. After I feel that all the layers are wet, it'll be less squishy and less fluffy, and you can see already that the volume has gone down. It's forming around the soap. So what we do now is we check it. Take the stocking off gently. This releases the fibers from the stocking. If you leave the stocking on the whole time without taking it out, some of the fibers can migrate through, and then when you go to pull it off, it will it'll just look weird and make it pill and everything like that. So I like to take the stockings off a couple times. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of any flyaways, anything that's not sticking down, I just kind of use my hands to gently put it down. There's still some wrinkles. If you put a lot of wool on, you'll see right here, and it's like a little bit wrinkly. Over here it's wrinkly, and that's fine. As we work it, those will all come out. But our first goal here is to get a nice skin on the outside and combine all those fibers together. So we're going to put it back in the stocking. What I like to do, and this is why I like using a stocking, is I put it all the way in there, and then I twist the stocking around so it's nice and tight, and then this way I can really like hold on to it and add pressure and get it to lather and compress the fibers. Mom doing this. These first couple minutes we're just making a skin, and we're just getting those fibers to combine. All those different colors are laying on top of the base, so you want them to fully integrate with the base so they're not flying off. So I just do that. If it needs to warm up, I'll put it in a little bit more. This is a really tactile experience. I mean, I can sit here and tell you how it feels, but until you really do it, you're not going to get it. It makes more sense because as I'm doing this, I can feel it hardening up and I can feel the fibers starting to get together. I do that for a little bit and then I check it again. You can see it's less wrinkly now. Even with just that little bit of working, it's starting to shrink. A lot of people talk about when you do felting to do a pinch test. So this is a good example. Like, this is not done. Like, these fibers are coming up, but they're starting to felt. So it still needs some work. After we've kind of played with it for a couple minutes to get that skin on and dunked it, and those fibers are starting to felt, but they're not quite there, we can start using our washboard or your mat. So I'm just going to show you on the washboard for now. How I like to start, I like to do the tops and the bottoms first, and I wait to do the edges. So I will take the stocking again and wrap it up tight so this is nice and firm around it, and then you can gently start rubbing it. You do it always. I do it this way and then I'll turn it. And you can do some circles, and at this point you don't have to rub too hard. You're just kind of just felting the fibers. Give them a start. I'll do that for a couple minutes, and then I will do the other side. I flip it over, and you'll be able to feel it. There's that tactile thing again. You'll be able to really feel that this is getting harder versus how squishy it is. So, and I like to keep the stocking on and adjust it and keep it tight. I like this is why I like to use the stocking, because you can make it nice and tight, and it actually compresses the fibers as you're felting them, which makes it go a little bit faster and produces a cleaner felt. If I take this off and just rub the fibers, what's going to happen is they'll start to pill actually, and it won't look as nice. It's not a big deal, but they just won't look as crisp and clean. I like them to look nicer. Do this for a couple of minutes. And you can check. So if you come in here, you can see that it's grabbing less now. It's getting there. It's not quite there yet, but the fibers aren't as easily coming up as they were before. See, like this is the edges here we haven't done, so you can see how those are still coming up a lot. Now for the edges, on a round soap like this, what makes it easy is I can put the stocking over and then wrap it and twist it again, so you can compress the stocking and have the little tail hanging out one of the sides here, so it's nice and tight. And you never want to, on an edge, even if it's round like this, have it go this way, because then it, like the fibers have a tendency to splay out. So you always want to go like up and down, and you never want to stay in one spot for too long. So with the round soaps, I can like turn them as I'm rolling them. I don't know if you can see that. So that's what I do. So as I go back, I'm kind of always moving it. It's hard to do it slow. And then I'll do it in that direction, then I'll turn it and do it in the other direction. So if you're using another soap, you can bring the camera up. If you're using a soap that has a weird shape, like it's oval, or it doesn't have like a flat side, because I know a lot of soaps, like Dove is, really rounded, doesn't really have any soft sides. You might not be able to really use a washboard or thing like this, you're really just going to have to do it by hand. So you're going to just use your hot water and just work it, rub it however you can. You know, you might be able to rub some of the sides, but it's definitely a little bit more challenging if your soap has a weird shape. And if you're using a square soap, those corners, I wouldn't even touch them. I used to felt rectangles soap, and the corners always gave me a problem because once you press on them and start to felt them, the fibers would splay out from the soap, or the soap would actually indent, and then the fibers wouldn't cover it completely, and it didn't look as nice, and then it'd have bare spots, and it just made everything a little bit more difficult. So I highly recommend round soaps for doing this, but you can get around not using round soaps by just working it with your hands, just like you're washing your hands, all that. So we just keep doing that. I can show you the felting process on the edges here. So their fibers are coming up a little bit still, not as bad as they were before. But so when you're doing like say you have a square soap and how are you supposed to felt the corners if I don't want you to rub the corners on there, is you basically just keep working the edges. So I would work this side and then the other side, and what that's going to do is as the wool's shrinking, it's going to pull those edges kind of to the center. So it'll kind of felt them, or you won't have to felt as much in here because it's kind of getting done for you. Does that make any sense at all? So as I felt, if you come in closer, as I felt this side right here, the wool is going to shrink this way. So this center part is going to start migrating over here. Then when I flip it and do this side, this center part is going to move over to the side. So it's going to constantly want to wrap itself and move to the center here. Wool felts in the direction that you agitate it. So if I agitate it up and down like this, it's going to shrink this way. If I do it this way, it's going to shrink this way. When I'm rolling it like this, it's actually felting it around, like long ways. It's not felting it this way. So to get that felt this way, you do this, but you don't want to do that just because this is where you get into trouble with the fibers splitting and exposing the soap. It sounds more complicated than it is. So basically, if you have a weird edge, just use your fingers. And you can see now I'm not using the stocking only because I want to show you the actual soap so you can see. So you can just use your fingers like this. And obviously the hotter the water, the quicker this is going to go. It's cooled down a bit. Now, you'll know when you're done by if the fibers are coming off. This is still pretty loose, so you can still see, like, if there's still like extra wool. I can still shrink more. So I'll keep going. You can see there how much extra it is. So you want to just keep going. And as you go, you can press harder. Just in the beginning, you want to take it easy, but once it has a nice skin on it, which it does, you can go harder. One side, and the other side. And you can feel it start to firm up. That's my daughter. helps to redunk in your hot water. My water's getting kind of cold, so I have to dunk it a lot, but if you had really hot water, it'd go a lot faster. It takes me about 5 to 10 minutes to felt a soap. When I'm doing them assembly line style, so what I'll do is I'll cover them all with wool and wrap them in the pantyhose, and then I will felt them all at once. And I'll do usually about 20 at a time. After you've been felting it for a while, we can stop. See, there's no real amount that I'm going to tell you, like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It's all going to go by feel. You'll be able to tell it's done because there's no wrinkles. There's really no wrinkles when you push it around. And then I can't really pick up the fibers at all. So it's done. Another good way to tell is if you put it in water. This water is really soapy. And you pull it out and it's fully saturated and there's no super fluffy bits. So it doesn't like puff up and feel really soft. It still feels nice and hard. And what's great about these, even if you felt them, this is one of the only felting projects where you can get away with not felting it completely hard. As long as the fibers aren't actively falling out of your hands, you can keep it kind of soft and do it a little quicker, because when you go to use it in the shower, you're basically repeating the entire felting process. Because you've got hot water, you got soap, and you got agitation. So every time you use it, it's going to felt a little bit more. And then you will be left with a little piece. And I forgot to bring it out. So let me go grab it real quick. Alright, so once you have your soap and it's all felted, what I like to do is I just kind of dry it or rinse it with cold water just to get the suds off. And then I use a towel to kind of just dry it as best I can. And then I just let it air dry on a cookie rack. You can use it right in your shower. There's no waiting time. Just when you get done with it in the shower, just make sure that you put it somewhere to dry. Just somewhere that can get a little bit of airflow, like one of those wooden soap blocks is good. And the wire little racks that you put soap on. It won't go bad or anything. This is a little soap. They were the same size, so you can see how much it shrunk. And that's about, I want to say this lasted like 3 months, 3 or 4 months, something ridiculous. Like this soap was going, and I bet you if I put this in here, it's still gonna, I mean, I know it's soapy from there, so that's a bad example, but there's still soap in here. So you could still lather it up. So it goes from this to felted, and then when you're done, into that. And that is how I do felted soap. I hope you liked this video and you enjoyed it, and I didn't say so and 800 million times. There, I did it again. So if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below and I will try to answer them. I want to thank Natalie and Trish and the other Natalie for inviting me to do this. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you guys thought of me to do a Teach It Tuesday, and I feel really honored. And there will be, you'll see me again. I am going to be helping doing a scrap box in, I believe, September, where we're going to felt a scarf. So it's going to be really cool. A much larger project, and I hope you will like it. I'm really excited to do it, and I can't wait to see what we come up with and then see what everybody else creates once the scrap box is available. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you to my husband Eric for filming me and my children for kind of cooperating and not bothering us too much while we're trying to film this for you. So thank you, and I'll see you again.